Dear friends, in today's edition of Baku Network, we have guests from Azerbaijan and France. Let me introduce, first of all, Mr. Jean-Michel. He is editor-in-chief of La Gazette, and Ms. Sevil Mikayilova. She is the member of Azerbaijani Parliament, independent member of Parliament. So welcome, dear friends, guests, to our Baku Network's new edition. So let's start with you, Mr. Jean-Michel. As you know, unfortunately, there are some negative attitude towards Azerbaijan, unjust, I would say, approach and attitude towards Azerbaijan by some European countries. Especially, we are seeing that after liberating our international recognized territories 3 years ago, unfortunately, some members of the European Parliament, European politicians, started acting strangely. First, they have not been able to digest, to accept the new realities that Azerbaijan has created. And we have not only liberated our territories, but we have also restored the injustice that have been in existence since 3 decades. We have restored justice. We have also acted upon the international law. But unfortunately, some, again, European politicians in France, in the United States, in the West in general, we are seeing that they are not in capacity to understand and to evaluate the realities. But here we are very disappointed by this approach. But we believe that there are still people in the West, in France, that they understand the importance, the role of Azerbaijan in the South Caucasus, be it in the security or energy security issues. So Azerbaijan is a very important player. That's why. What's your take on this subject? How Azerbaijan is seen right now from France? Because you also represent the community of journalists and intellectuals that see and evaluate the situation on the ground in France.
Can have several answers about that. The first, unfortunately, Azerbaijan is not very known in France and in Europe. When if you ask people where is Azerbaijan and where is Armenia, they have no idea. And also, the French policy, but not only French policy, are mostly ruled by domestic policies. And for instance, who are the two main supporters of Armenia? It's France and the United States. Why? Because there is big diaspora in these two countries. We have the biggest Armenian diaspora in all Europe, in France, 800,000 people. This is one of the reasons. And of course, this Armenian in France has a strong power, because they are concentrated in the 3 main French cities, like Lyon, Paris, and Marseille. And when somebody wants to be elected or re-elected, he has to consider the Armenian community, of course. This is one of the reasons. The second reason is in France, something is happening. France, unfortunately, now become a weak country, and we have a lot of domestic problems. I often say that French people are desperate, and we have a lack of doctors. Terrible lack of doctors, lack of teachers. We have tremendous taxes. Our cities are dirty. When you leave Paris and you come to Baku, it's a big shock, because you have a very clean city, and Paris is very dirty. So we have a lot of problems like that, and so. When you feel some weakness, one of the solutions is to find an enemy. And the most easiest thing is to find 2 enemies, domestic enemies and a foreign enemy, of course. It's not the first time. You know, in 1870, they built some fortification around Paris. It was the war at this time, and the cannons were
Placed on the.
targeted not outside Paris, but towards inside Paris. So the domestic, the internal enemy is something. And who is the domestic enemy? It's very easy. It's immigration. It's Muslims. Because from Sarkozy, the French politician thinks that they are, how do you say, the stock of vote is located at the far right. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's a big mistake because the French are not racist, but it's like that. And the far right speech is, of course, against immigration, against Islam, and so on. And in France, we see this conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan as a civilization conflict, as a religious conflict. Of course, Armenia support this vision, and they say, okay, we are supporting the Christians, Armenians against the Muslims, Azerbaijanis. Even if everybody knows that Azerbaijan is a secular country, and they say that we have to support the Western Christian of Armenia, but there are Western Christians in Azerbaijan, of course. So I think it is one of the reason of this.
Yes.
Conflict.
Yeah, very interesting points. So, Ilham, as we are seeing, as Mr. Jean-Michel mentioned, after ending the war in the South Caucasus, now the new rhetoric that is being used by some Western politicians is putting each other the civilizational context of the conflict, as if Christian Armenians fighting Muslim Azerbaijanis or Turks or whatever it is. So we are seeing that they are now trying to shift the main focus because we know that at the core of this conflict was territorial claim by Armenia against Azerbaijan. So seeing that this rhetoric is not anymore in the high end on their agenda, they are now replacing and manipulating with the idea of as if Muslim Azerbaijan attacked and defeated Christian Armenia. So they are trying to bring into focus the civilizational context, putting against each other the Christian civilization against, as if fighting Muslim civilization. So having said that, don't you see that this kind of focus and replacing the agenda is very dangerous from the point of view that we have always supported and acted upon the international law, the principles and norms of international law. So is it kind of the last resort that Western countries, some politicians in France or in the United States can use and can manipulate in order to seek the way out of the problem? Is it their kind of last resort? Don't you think that it's strange? It must not be there as this rhetoric?
I fully agree with you that there are some forces who want to, push the relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia and the history of the conflict to another platform, seeing it as a confrontation between the civilization Muslims and Christians. But what I want to say, and I will just remind to you that since the very beginning, yes, you're right, we know that it entered into the global agenda as a territorial conflict. It is not confrontation of civilization. There is no religious component in this conflict, and we all know it very well. And to be true, over the 30-year history of the conflict, we haven't heard from any of the country any component relating it to a religious conflict. But after the war, which has ended by the victory of Azerbaijan, we see such a spirit in some countries, in some societies, and unfortunately, France is leading in this series. And the Macron's French president's statement made months ago also was an effort to put the conflict into the center of the confrontation between the civilizations. Actually, this theory is not something new for the global policy, as and even I don't know the history, and I'm not sure you know the history of this confrontation between the civilizations, but the mankind is struggling, sometimes supporting this theory for their own interests. But unfortunately, this theory now is migrating and pushing to the South Caucasus. But it is unacceptable for us, and why we are struggling here in Azerbaijan, trying to explain to our partners, France and others, that this is not a confrontation of civilizations. Even in Armenia, they don't think in this way, because they understand that, at the end of the day, they will have to live in this region. They will have to have neighbors like Azerbaijan. And for the sake of the future, they need to come at a table of talk to sign this peace agreement and to live together for the centuries to come. And what I want to say, in France, what they start now, this policy, it is really, really dangerous. And why? This is a policy, we understand, and this political establishment, this political system will change. Macron will be replaced by someone else after some years because of the constitution of France. So this is a presidential administration, and every 5 years, French people elect their new president, and every president has its own foreign policy. But if we see that this spirit is felt in the society, and the French people really believe that this is confrontation of religions, and we believe that they accept that Azerbaijanis actually carried out in quote crimes against humanity or something else, it will be an easy task for us for decades even to correct this development in the political system. So therefore, we here will struggle. We will try to explain to our partners that, you need to understand the core of the conflict. And by this way, believe me, you don't help Armenians. You just hurdle the processes.
Exactly, because it seems that in the West, in some European countries, they have exhausted all of their resources, and in order to generate the new support, in order to mobilize those people, those politicians who would support Armenia, they now using this new idea of confrontation of civilization in order to bring their attention and to achieve their support. So, Mr. Jean-Michel, you have said that there are around 800,000 Armenians live in France, right? So what's the population of France right now? More than 80?
Yes, a bit less than 80.
Yes, it means that even less than 1% of population of France are consist of French Armenians, right? So it is very strange for me how domestic politics in France is developing and unfolding, because it is impossible to imagine that less than 1% of ethnic minority or ethnic group, French Armenians, define the foreign policy of France, which puts France into a very difficult situation. Exactly. Because France must understand the government of France. Of course, I believe that the French people, they are very wise, they are very, they know their history, their traditions. And if France would like to achieve something important in the South Caucasus, the number one country here is Azerbaijan. So if you would like to have any project, any economic or energy project, any political relations, you have to have very good relations with Turkey, with Azerbaijan. But it seems that, again, less than 1% of our French population are defining the foreign policy, are putting France into a very high risk. And now we have seen just a week ago, France has changed its rhetoric and even helping Armenia by sending arms. So this is a very dangerous development, I think. And now I hope that some French people will listen to our the debate, to conversation, in order to prevent French government fueling revanchist forces in Armenia. Because if France will continue to fuel, to support revanchists in Armenia, it means new escalation, and nobody wants new escalation. We are enough. We have enough confrontation war for 3 decades. So, how you would comment on this manipulation of French domestic?
Well, first, the first time I came in Azerbaijan was two years ago. I told my Azerbaijani friends that France will send weapons to Armenia. Why? We are in a war. It's a real war, and between Armenia and Azerbaijan there was a war. Okay, Armenia lost the war. They lost the war with the guns, of course. Why they lose this war? Because all the President Aliyev is like he's chief commander, and he brought his army to victory with weapons. Okay, Armenia, of course, was very weak, and they know that they can't win any war with a weapon. So they changed. The war changed, and it's no more war with guns. It's a war with pens. Pens. And they are very strong. The Armenians are very strong in this kind of field. And so what did they do? They build a new story. They build a new story. I made a big study about Armenia a few years ago in 1980, something like that. And when you compare the story of Armenians told by the Armenians and the story now, it's very different.
Yeah.
I remember that in the 80s they didn't talk about Caucasus at all, Karabakh at all. For instance, in the famous book of the great Armenian historian Serge Afanasyan, which name is Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, very important book. He talked about Karabakh, of course, but it's just half a page. So they changed the story, and this is the story we are listening to in France. And you, Azerbaijanis, won the war because you have a stronger army, of course, and you fight with better weapons. But now you have also to fight a new war. And this new war is the information war. And I feel that maybe you are less strong in this kind of war. But if you improve your information weapon, you can very easily win this new war. Last week there was a meeting at the Azerbaijani Cultural Center in Paris, and there were a lot here of historians, of journalists, and so on. And the guy say, "Okay, I'm a journalist, and I am tired to hear that French journalists do not their work properly. It's not true. It's because we need very quick information, and who is providing information? Only Armenians. If we want an information about these conflicts, we can get this information from the Armenian Documentation Center, from the Armenian newspaper, and so. and it's very difficult for us to get information from Azerbaijan. And when the Azerbaijani ambassador in France, Leila Abdallayeva, made some interviews these few weeks,
Yes.
everybody was shocked. Yes, it's the first time we are listening that, and I received phone calls from phone calls, excuse me, from France and even from United States, and they said, "Wow, we learned something," because Armenians say that Azerbaijan was the aggressor. They say that Azerbaijan occupied the Karabakh. It's incredible. It's completely stupid, but it's just what the French journalists hear. That's all. So I think that if we improve what we are doing here, you know, what we are doing with the Gazette. But if we improve that, I think really things can change, because you know. The French people don't want to fight with Armenia. They don't want to support Armenia. They don't care about Armenia. They don't care. For them, Armenians, they are Charles Navour. They are, you know, artists, but they don't care about the country. So I think they are very open to listen to another story. But you have to tell this story. If you don't tell this story, how can they get it, you know? And so your next battle is the media battle.
Exactly. We agree with you that the information war is on the way, and it is not new as well. So information war started not even 30 years ago, but maybe 70, 80 years ago, when the ideologies of Great Armenia started it in the West against Azerbaijan, and not only Azerbaijan, against Turkey as well. And the so-called fictional Armenian genocide, it's also, we know it. And you're right, we need, to intensify our job in the information war. We are actually conducting this war against those who started, but we need to intensify. We agree with you, but I don't agree with that idea that this is only journalists or people or historians or scientists or some circles. They are not the only, believe me, orchestra guides in these processes. The political and governmental circles are the major guides in this process. We, with my colleague, Mr. Genjariev, have been in a number of times to the European Parliament. We have been in a number of in debate with our counterparts. Sometimes we cannot understand what they do. We explain to them what we do here, but each time they have their own truths. They understand that we are right. They very well know we are not aggressive. The war was in the territory of Azerbaijan. They know that Azerbaijan has suffered from occupation for 30 years. There are UN Security Council resolutions, 4 resolutions. Even they don't believe, they don't understand us, but I think they believe the UN, and they understand who is occupier, who suffered from occupation. We are not dealing with this stuff of things, but the major problem is that now the campaign started in the West against Azerbaijan. So to push on Azerbaijan, to pressure on Azerbaijan, this is a part of big game. This is a part of big global game. Last time I saw two of our colleagues in the European Parliament starting a debate about Armenians joining to the European Union. They invited Armenia to the European Union. They openly expressed their support to Armenia. They openly expressed their support to territorial integrity to Armenia. And they openly say that we will defend you in any case, just to make a decision in this very important period of history. What does it mean? This is not a journalist stance. This is a stance of a politician. He is represented in the European
Political
Parliament.
elite of the European
Yes,
Union.
and the last resolution, maybe my colleague will touch upon as well, in the United States about the defense of Armenia. What does it mean? Who's attacking on Armenia here in South Caucasus to defend it? You know, this is so banal to even to debate about these issues. We very well understand the core issue, but we just want to explain to our colleagues again that they are not in the right way for this period of history. That will not work at all.
Yes. Would you like to comment?
Yes, I know that you make a great job in linking the parliaments, and really you do a great job. But anyway, of course you know that France is losing its power, but France has still a very big power. It's a psychological power, and when the France say something, the other European countries listen to them. And when the French politicians say, okay, we are supporting Armenia, the other European countries say, okay, maybe you are right, of course. But you have to bear in mind that France, something very strange happened in France these few months. Macron got a very big success by turning the French parliament into a useless system.
Repeating the Elysium.
Exactly. And for the first time during the Fifth Republic, we are using the famous Article 49.3. This article was created to allow the government to pass by the parliament when there is a big crisis, a huge crisis, and when the parliament is completely blocked. But this time we are not in a big crisis, and they use this article for very normal topics. In 1 month, we used this article 14 times.
Wow.
The first time in all the history. For what? Mm-hmm. For the retreats, for the budget of the school, or not for defense problem or something like that. And it means that Macron doesn't consider the parliament to be a useful useful tool. So when you talk to your colleague, a French colleague, it's completely useless because they have no power at all. Where is the power? Of course, there is just one thing: they want to be re-elected. And who elect the deputies? People. And what people is listening to? Media. So the best way to have an influence on politics and even on parliaments is to talk to people, not to talk to deputies. As an Azerbaijani deputy, maybe you have some power, some strength. As a French deputy, you have no power at all. As a French senator, you have no power at all. And even you have big problems now. Even inside our parliament, look, one senator is accused to harassment to another colleague. So we have several scandals.
Yeah, it's crisis.
Yeah, because it is a big crisis, and of course it's a very good thing for Macron. He wants to bypass completely the parliament. This is a big problem. It's why you're right. Of course, you have to work with the French parliament. But look, the friendship between
Interparliamentary friendship.
Yes, yes, has been
Yes.
cancelled in
Cancelled.
France. No, so of course you must keep on working on that, of course. But I think really that the main target is people, and to reach people,
Yes.
it's media.
Yes, very important points. I would like to wrap up our conversation by saying that very important aspects that you have highlighted. First, yes, we understand that France still has a leverage on the European Union, on the European Parliament, but on the other hand, Azerbaijan is a new emerging power here in the Caucasus, here in the biggest, here is the wider Eurasian region. So France and the European Union, European Parliament must take into account the role of Azerbaijan. This is first. And unfortunately, yes, you have said that there is a crisis in domestic politics, in decision-making process, not only in France, in some European countries. So it brings into attention, into focus, the very important idea of famous French philosopher René Guénon, who wrote in his book La crise du monde moderne, the crisis of the modern world, that now the western part of the world is facing the crisis, and even the crisis of ideology, the ideas that hurdles that creates obstacle before the Western civilization. So I think that we have to it would take us long to discuss, to debate over these issues, but I think that here in the Western countries, in the European Union, they must understand and they must reconsider their approach towards South Caucasus, towards Azerbaijan and Turkey. Maybe in this case we will be able to understand each other well. So thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much for your kind and for your very interesting contribution, and looking forward to see you in next Baku Network editions. Thank you.
With pleasure.